but it won't go live. I'm going to be looking over on this screen to refresh because it'll give me a countdown. So I'm going to turn on that light. Sorry, it's also squishy, isn't it? But I've never done it with anybody here, so.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's because I'm wanting the white background, the neutral background, which I haven't fixed up yet, but I certainly don't want my bed in the background. So, and I take down the picture, copyright, and all that kind of stuff, so that's why it's so sparse.
Okay.
So, oops, sorry. No, that's okay. Let's see. That's not bad. See, that balances the light a bit more.
Yeah.
If you want to come in.
Try it, John. There you go.
See? I have powder, too, if you wanted. Totally up to you. Yeah, we're a bit washed out. There's probably too much light coming from there. So I'm going to turn one off, and let's see what happens if we just have one overhead. It's a bit, that looks a bit gray. It's not as warm.
Blue in the background.
Yeah. So I'll try switching them. That's better, I think.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Usually I just have one. I get a shiny nose. I don't usually stand right over here. Okay, so that's when I introduce you, you'll walk on and you'll see yourselves in the camera. And that's where you're looking when you're talking, although when I'm listening to you, I'm going to be like we're talking. Okay. So you can either, actually when you're talking, you probably just should look at the camera, because if we're all looking at each other, so when we're listening, we can listen, but when we're talking, we look at the eye right there.
Okay.
Yeah. So that should be good.
People.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I feel like I have the best spot. Maybe that's why your nose is shiny.
I know. I'm going to do this. Oh, see? It's counting down. 3 minutes. So it will go live in 3 minutes. So coolio. So you guys can exit stage left for now till I introduce you. Like, I'm not going to go live till the thing goes. Oh my God, it's hot in here. I had the window open. It's like, this light gets hot too. Anyway, it's an age thing. No one else is saying they're hot.
No, I'm really hot.
Do you think
that's why I took my shirt off downstairs.
Do you think it's planned for 1 hour or?
No, like 30, 40 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been trying to keep them all to that, because then I go into my group, my private group for tasting. Yeah. But also I've been looking at the metrics as to what's optimal. And like anywhere between 20 and 40 minutes is optimal from Facebook's point of view. So sometimes they slide into longer, but you know, we've got a very focused subject, so I think it'll be fine.
Okay.
20, 30.
Well, we can go festival. Yeah. We can go experience of the festival. We can do the specific sessions.
Absolutely.
We can do what's happened.
Yeah, no, there's lots to do.
Last year, next year.
So if
relationships, you want trade talk?
Okay, so
let's go over the questions again.
Both. We've got a minute and 30. Okay. They're both certified. Okay, so I won't say he's a professional. Is there something else I can say?
I'm a professional. I'm an executive coach.
Okay, there we go.
I don't mind you saying that.
Yeah, that's fine. Doesn't all have to be whinish. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. It's just more for the balance of the credentials on either side. That's all. Yeah. You know, I'll lead off with what's the most amusing thing that's happened to you at the Vancouver Wine Festival. What stories? And so you guys can choose. It's great if you have two different stories, but if you don't, whatever. We'll make it a conversation. Or maybe John leads off and you add to the story or whatever.
If you think of something. The first one.
You got something in mind? Ooh. Strangest thing? What one should I start with? Got 45 seconds. So I'll start with something. What's something that would really surprise people about the Vancouver Wine Festival? You get to talk to the winemakers, right? Yeah. So that might be a good one to lead with. So it's 35 seconds. It's going to go live whether we're ready or not. So you guys push over a bit.
Instant access to,
And we'll hear you.
Principles.
When I'm talking, they'll hear you if you're talking. Okay? Because this mic is for everybody. Okay. All right. This should be fun. This will be great. Okay. All right. Not sure if you've heard of the Vancouver Wine Festival, but it's been described as Canada's best wine show. But should you attend? What is the value of attending? Is it worth the time and the money, especially if you do have to travel to Vancouver? Not a bad place to be. I granted you that. My guests are going to talk exactly on that point tonight, as well as about other wine shows. How do you get the most out of a wine show when you attend? It can be overwhelming with so many wines and classes and everything going on there. Welcome, folks. I'm Natalie McLean, editor of Canada's largest wine review site at nataliemclean.com. And you've joined us here on the Sunday Sipper Club, where we gather every week, Sundays at 6 p.m. Eastern, that's Toronto, New York time, to talk to the most interesting people in the world of wine. Now, before I introduce my guests fully, in the comments below, just yes or no, have you ever attended the Vancouver Wine Festival? Yes or no? I'd be really curious as to how many people have been to the festival, and I'm just refreshing my Facebook page. Excellent. I'm glad you can hear us loud and clear, or hear me loud and clear. Lois, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Stephen Andrews is in the house, and awesome. That's great, guys. Okay, so let's go for it here. Our guests, we have two guests this evening, not just one, so twice the fun this evening who are joining us. They are partners in wine and in life, and they're the co-owners of Bespoke Tastings, offering tutored tastings to private and corporate groups in the Ottawa region. They're both certified sommeliers, and he is an executive coach, and she is a wine columnist for both Ottawa Living Magazine and Lux Magazine. And they join me now live from my office here in Ottawa. Welcome to the Sunday Sipper Club show. Monique Souza, John Steeves. Yay, you're here. We've never done this before. I've never done this before. So guys, thank you so much for giving this a shot. We're going to get real cozy tonight.
That's okay.
All right, good. Great to have you guys here. So you are just back from this year's Vancouver Wine Festival, and I know you've gone there several years in a row. Let's kick it off. What would surprise people most about this festival compared to others?
Well, for me, it's so well organized. Like, everything is perfectly timed to when the doors open, when the doors closed. Nobody's shoving or pushing anybody. The festival itself just puts on a well-crafted, curated show. Yeah. All of the invited exhibitors, us as we get invited as media, or even the consumers or buyers or people in the trade. Like, everything is just so well organized and formal, and we never feel overwhelmed or underwhelmed.
Yeah, that could be an issue with the show. Like, sometimes there'll be thousands of people, and you go, oh my gosh, how could I even get through this throng of people to taste the wines?
Yeah.
And John, what would you find the most surprising thing is when it comes to the festival?
What I love the most is the direct access to a huge diversity of wines from around the world, and the principal winemakers and the principals from the wine companies.
That is different, isn't it? That the winemakers have to be there pouring their wines. It's not, no offense or whatever to sales reps, but it's not the sales rep, it's not the marketing gal, it's the winemaker there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
There's typically an agent and also the owner or the winemaker, him or herself.
Right.
And being able to be intimate with the product, be intimate with the wine itself, and have a real dialogue, an authentic dialogue about the life, the farming, the terroir, the past, the present, and the future is absolutely exceptional.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do any of the conversations in particular stand out for you? Can you remember, it doesn't necessarily have to be from this year's festival, but even in the past, a discussion you had with a winemaker, like what were you talking about? What story did he or she tell you?
There is one beautiful story that stands out. Funny, but beautiful. No judgments anywhere, but we were in a port tasting with some of the biggest port producers from Portugal. And the principal from Quinto de Castro, described a story that was probably one of the highlights of his life so far. And these port houses they go centuries. They're either, several generations of ownership that have passed down from family to family. And he told us a story about, I was born into this. The port soils are in my blood, and the port is in my blood. And he said that when his child was born very recently, I don't remember how recently, but recently, one of the things that he was really excited to do was to have his child taste port before anything else. So a noob, he told us a story. He's like, I took a little vial from my cellar, went to the hospital, a baby was born. I took my little finger, I dipped it into the vial, and I put it in his mouth. So the first thing his child tasted was port instead of his mother's breast milk. But it lit up the room. We were like, wow, that is amazing. Like, you are truly passionate about, it's a part of your culture. So
and generation after generation. I mean, it really is part of that, and developing a taste for wine very early. I've heard people putting like just a dot of, Chateau Cam or some sweet wine or whatever. I mean, personally with my son, I always wanted him to not think of wine as taboo, so my mistake, or maybe it was the right thing to do, but I gave him a dry Shiraz, and he said it was total yuck. He was 3. He still doesn't drink wine. I think I turned it off for life. But anyway, so that's a great story.
But he loves the strawberries and black peppers.
Oh, yes. That's true. That's true. You have a good memory. That's awesome. Okay, so this year's theme was Spain and Portugal. That was the theme country. So that's the other difference about the Vancouver Wine Festival. They always have a theme country. So tell me a little bit about that while I check Facebook. What kind of things were going on around? Obviously, there's lots of wines from Spain and Portugal, but what were the seminars like? What were the events like for these countries?
Yeah. Well, everything from Cava to port. We already mentioned port. It wasn't just 100% seminars on those 2 regions, but some of it was either discovering these regions. For instance, in Portugal, they have so many grapes that I don't really know. I discovered a new grape called the Encruzado, a white grape from Portugal that is similar to Chardonnay. So it's made in either dry, very, very dry Chablis style. It can be made into sparkling wine. It can be oaked and made into big, buttery versions of Encruzado. So that was really amazing to discover and very affordable as well. Discovery seminars, very focused seminars on Cava. I'll let John talk to you about that because that was, I won't say anything. No spoilers. There was port.
Of course,
There were other highlights on Rioja. John also attended a seminar on Rioja.
So you get to go into the deep dive with all of these tastings because you're tasting side by side many of the same type of wine.
And on the tasting floor, so if you don't have a seminar ticket, you would have had the chance to taste food from Spain and Portugal. The consulates of both countries were there highlighting their products and all of the beautiful sausages and meats and oh my gosh, amazing.
So awesome. John, I'm coming back to you in a minute. I'm just going to tell you folks, if you are just joining us now and you're enjoying this conversation, please take a moment to share this video. Comment if you will, and if you want to know when we go live each week, click on the follow button. And at the end of this session, I'm going to announce last week's winner, who shared and liked and commented whatever for a signed copy of Kathy Hayhoe's book from Forbes magazine, Hungry for Wine. As you know, I always post a get reminder on the page, so if you want to know, just click on that to get a reminder each week. All right, and I'm going to just check over here to Facebook because the comments are coming in. All right, Andrea Shapiro says, looks like the two of you had a great time. Beverly Aslan says, welcome to everyone from Southern California. Lori Kilmartin, the broadcast keeps getting interrupted. Okay, hopefully that's an issue that is local to you. Lori, I'm not seeing any interruptions yet. Let's see, not totally maxing out our CPU, but let's see if we can keep going here. Paul says we have not had the pleasure of attending the broadcast. Okay, so John, to you, you did the Cava tasting, did you?
Yeah, I did a Cava masterclass on my first morning. So arrive in Vancouver on Tuesday evening and wake up, you know, in 3 time zones over. Yeah. And first thing in the morning, going to a Cava masterclass.
Oh, wow.
So you enter the room, and at the front of the room are principals from 10 different organizations who have produced their wine and very proudly have prominently displayed them on a placemat. And each of the placemats are, so every place seating is labeled with each of the wines appropriately filled with one, I think it's an ounce, and labeled with the types of wines that are in your glass. So you sit down and you have this diverse portfolio of cavas sitting in front of you for breakfast.
A good way to start. Breakfast of champions.
And I have to say, it was absolutely amazing.
Fantastic. And you know that side-by-side tasting, it's like if you only have one cava or one type of a wine, just that one, it's hard to say, well, I'm not sure how to describe this, but it's when you have the same type of wine and side-by-side is when you see the differences.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not only the color profiles, but it's the depth of the complexity in these wines, and being able to walk through it with the actual winemaker, him or herself, explaining their product, and also, as Monique mentioned, adding that historical perspective to where this wine came from. They speak to their family, they speak to their terroir, they speak to emerging trends in so in this case, in Catalonia,
right,
in northeastern Spain, and just give us so much information on the wine itself and where it's come from.
Right. Yeah, no, there's
Beautiful.
nothing like it. And I think, this is probably the next best thing to traveling to the region. You're talking to the winemaker, you're tasting the wines, you're comparing side by side, you're doing food pairings, I'm sure, at certain events. Yeah. I mean, it's the next best thing, I think, to traveling to the country, it sounds like.
Definitely. Yeah. Back to the topic on one of the things that we learned or surprised us about Winefest, more specific to that was what surprised us about Cava, because I was in that seminar too.
Yeah.
Was that we have access to mostly the entry market labels of Cava. And what we had the opportunity to do was to try all the upper brands or the upper echelons of Cava. So we all know Freixenet, and we know it's a great value wine. It's delicious. It works very well for many different occasions. It's crowd pleasing. It's amazing. It's just one of my favorite bubblies to go to. And we tasted what would essentially be like a vintage single vineyard type of Cava. That's one of their most premium brands that the House of Freixenet produces, and it's called the Canasala. So that label is a whole new tier, in a sense, of Cava perfection, if I'm allowed to say that. I think so anyway.
Is it available in the market? Can we buy it?
No.
Not yet, no. Okay. They do have upper tiers, but that sounds like
it extends beyond that. So we have seen the Alicia labels. You might have seen that on
that's the one I'm thinking of,
that we tried some of those too, and they do they also do, well, Cava is mostly made with native varietals to the Penedès region, but some of them they do with Pinot Noir. So they have an Alicia that they made that was rosé bubbly made from Pinot Noir, and it was delightful. I think that was the one we started with. And then also other brands that we don't necessarily enjoy a lot. They had, so you don't have to remember this. There's not going to be a test. But the names of the grapes, I love them. Some of them are like my passwords to certain things if you can find out how to spell them. But it's like
you're safe.
I'm safe, yeah. So it's one of the main grapes is Xarel-lo, Macabeo, and Parellada, and they would have, it's a blend of those grapes. And what I discovered was, what I tasted was Cava just from Xarel-lo, like just the Xarel-lo grape, and we're like, wow, who knew that this grape can make such outstanding varietals. Fantastic. This varietal can make such outstanding sparkling wine. And other brands like Paris Balta, a fully organic winery, trying a whole new angle on the Cava production, organic, almost biodynamic, depending on which vineyards they use. Another favorite would probably be Huve Campo, or Huve Camp, sorry.
Yeah.
That's the house that made the 100% Xarel-lo wine.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah.
And we've got some questions coming in, too, if you guys don't mind. Jane Staples says, actually, we have access to Cordier and Segura Viuda. I can never pronounce these.
Segura Vidas.
So there you go. I always writing them, but never pronouncing them. Doesn't get any better. Yes, those are great. Lois Gilbert says, which area in Spain is producing the best Cava according to you folks? What would you say?
Well, Cava's, I want to say, historical home in a sense, or not historical, but the place with the most production and the longest production would be in the Penedès region.
Penedès, yes.
So
okay.
that is...
Is that north
it's
in the country?
So Barcelona,
Yeah.
we know there.
Okay.
It's just south of Barcelona. There's a little town called Sitges.
Okay.
And a few minutes in, so because that's on the coast.
Yeah.
That's where you find Penedès. And
okay.
They also do produce cava all over Spain, though. So the
Okay.
DO, the
Denominación
Denominación
origin, the quality designation. Yes.
origin
Yes, yes.
is the biggest one is in Penedès, but
Okay.
other areas in Spain
Yep.
can produce cava as well under the DO of Cava.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
that's awesome.
we could expect that to change a little bit, so they highlight Penedès a little bit more in the
Right.
future because
it's the specialist
yeah.
area.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we've got Lori Kilmartin, enjoyed watching your trip to Vancouver on Instagram. You guys were active on Instagram when you were there. Yeah, you're big on social media. I know that. Yeah. So how do you keep it straight? How do you remember all of this? Like you were getting good recall here, but what tools are you using? How can and my larger question is, how can people remember everything they're tasting and all this information? It seems like overwhelming. What are your tips and tricks to remember this?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that.
Sure.
So in the master classes, the Vancouver International Wine Festival, as Monique said, is uber organized. And so when you arrive in these master classes, you'll actually have a notepad, a pen that's provided to you. Sometimes they'll be providing you with tasting notes and information on the region itself in writing. So actually getting booklets as part of the package. And so it's really easy to take your notes. It's very easy to take your notes around tasting notes, and also what these amazing people at the front table are actually telling you.
Good.
Yeah.
And what else? What are other ways to get the most out of a wine show, even if it's not the Vancouver Wine Fest? Like your plan of attack, or how do you get the most out of a wine show at all? Like any wine show.
I think you need to answer what is most important to you when you do that. Is it important for you to... What's your agenda going to a wine show, in a sense? Are you going to learn? Are you going to network? Are you going to taste wines as much as you can? Are you going to taste new wines you've never tasted before? So for me, I have a very big checklist that is probably too ambitious, and I always, feel like, okay, I'm just setting myself up for defeat, but it's never the case. You have to be flexible and open to different discoveries as well.
Sure.
So I'm a learner. There's never enough I can learn about wine and anything in the wine world, and the culture and the food connection with wine, the people. So I go wanting to learn more. And I remember because I listened to the stories.
Right. The stories really embed it, don't
they
they?
do.
The learning.
Yeah.
The facts are boring, but the stories, when they're woven into a story, really you remember. But I love what you said at the beginning. What's your intention or what's your goal? Is it to network? Is it to taste? Is it... And you can get even more micro from that. I just want to really taste as many Shirazes as I can from different regions.
Yeah, totally.
Like I want to learn all about that grape, that one grape. And that can be your goal.
Yep.
Do you have something you go in with, John?
Well, it was interesting this year. I noticed that, so I have an environmental engineering, civil engineering background, and underneath of my executive coaching practice. And so when people start talking about climate change in the wine industry, it piques my attention.
Sure.
And this year what I noticed is that many winemakers were asking questions and making comments about the impacts of climate change on their terroir, on their products, on the grapes, on the vines, and on their business.
Okay.
And so for an example, the climate change angle, because of my personal values, that I paid attention to.
Sure. And that was your filter going through the show.
That was that was one of the filters.
Yeah,
when people would speak to that, I would take notes on it.
Sure.
This is really interesting.
Yeah.
So what is dry harvest? What is what are the impacts of the variability of rain at typical picking time?
Right.
So there's so many aspects that you tend to pay attention to, but I agree with Monique. It's really based on your own values and your own interests and expectations.
Yeah. Something for everyone.
Yeah.
Awesome.
For somebody who's interested in the future and heavily invested in the future,
trends,
you'd ask about what's coming up and what are you seeing in your specific terroir, in your country, with your DO.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
what is that? What's up and coming that you'd like the world to know about your DO?
Sure.
About your business, about trends that are showing up that would be really, sexy for people to know about.
Yeah.
You know?
Dinner party conversation.
Yeah.
You're in the know. Well, that's great. Guys, if you're enjoying this conversation, please take a moment to share it. You can comment if you like and follow so you know when we go live. Of course, you can always click the Get Reminder on the page. At the end of this broadcast, I will be drawing for the winner of last week's contest who did that, shared, liked, followed, etc., for a signed copy of Forbes columnist wine book, Hungry for Wine. So I hear there's some pretty wild dinners. I mean, in terms of wild, over-the-top, sumptuous, the pairings. What was the most memorable dinner you've been to? The greatest pairings that you remember? Whether, again, it's this year or previous years.
Oh, that's a tough
question. It's tough to pick.
Yes, because they are designed to perfection.
Are they like 8 courses or something? Like, are they multiple courses?
They are. They're at least 4 or 5.
Okay.
And you got to remember, we're in Vancouver.
Yes.
It's one of the most gastronomic places we can visit in Canada.
That is true.
So that's usually at the top of my list. Yeah, my ambitious agenda is always to make it to one of these dinners and to try a restaurant that I haven't tried before.
Sure.
So we did do a winery dinner, and we kind of ventured on our own because we have our own little tastes and whatnot. You might see a picture of a taco pop up every now and again, and nice coffee because when we don't have to wake up at 9 a.m. for a seminar, that's what we venture out to explore the food scene in Vancouver. I went to the Chopino restaurant, very highly rated, highly reviewed. They've won many awards, many Sommelier of the Year awards. Great wine lists. Like, as soon as you walk in, there's this giant fridge of beautiful Italian Super Tuscans and Barolos and Spanish wine. Oh my gosh, it just goes on forever. And I was at a dinner where the wines came from Newport wines from Portugal.
Yes.
And Alvarez? No. I can't remember the wine from Spain. It starts with an A. It's not that one.
No, not the Elvire that we have here tonight. Okay, that's all right.
No, it's I'll get back to you on it. I'll remember. It'll come to me.
It's the only thing you've forgotten tonight. Amazing.
So, but yeah, and the food it was sort of regionally paired, so that chefs probably work together with the wineries to produce something that would try to showcase and highlight whatever it is we need to know about pairing Portuguese wine and Spanish wines with meats and seafood and there's always an element of seafood in there because we're in Vancouver, and I always notice a respect for regions where there might be braised meats of a certain kind or game meats of a certain kind.
Sure.
And you meet famous people there. You meet the wine maker, you meet the winery owner, you meet their family if they're there. Right. You may very well meet a member of the foreign council, the consulate, so either somebody who works in the embassy or something to that extent. And they are great listeners. They want to know, like, what brought you here? Like, why are you excited about our wines? And, just very humble yet exciting, fun conversations to be had at these dinners. Absolutely. You'll never know who you're going to meet.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah. Wow, I've been comments are coming in here, folks. Stephen Andrews asks, did you taste any good Mencia wines? Am I pronouncing that correctly? Mencia or Mencia?
I didn't.
Mencia. Mencia? Yeah.
Yeah.
And taste any of those? No?
I can't recall.
No worries. Next question. I'm sure there's so many there. So, Stephen, we'll get back to you on that. But Rochelle says, great guest tonight, Natalie. Loved following your trip, Monique and John. Amazing people and dynamite sommeliers. What will be your next wine adventure? So, have you got something planned? I know you want to go back next year.
Yeah.
Right? So we may as well go to that before we forget about that. So each year is a theme country. What's next year?
California. It's actually not a country.
It's a region.
But it's big enough. It's big
enough
to be a country.
Yeah, the diversity of California is going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And they drop little hints every now and again. They had a nice evening called the California Crust just ahead of the opening of the tasting floor. I think it was on a Wednesday night. Festival tasting floor opened on a Thursday evening. And there was a seminar that was, it wasn't just for trade, it was for consumers as well, called Pinots of California, or California's Greatest Pinots, that type of thing. And I attended that seminar. It was, the panel speaker was DJ Kearney. She's very funny.
BC writer,
And very engaging with her audience, and then a whole panel of all of these great California producers, right? So after that, we thought, I think that was on the Friday night, we're like, okay, something's got to be out. There's a little bit of California coming out everywhere, and they always announce it right at the end of the, almost at the end of the show on Saturday night.
Right.
So yes, the festival is a full week. Like, it's intense.
That is intense. Wow. So California, that's going to be huge next year. Yeah. So it's usually in late February, right? Is it sort of the last week of February every year?
Around that area,
Or maybe a little earlier. I can't remember when exactly you guys.
It was mid-February last year.
Okay.
And then a little bit later this year.
Okay. Cool. That's awesome. Did you have any food by Ned Bell? Is that a restaurateur, or is that?
No, I didn't.
No.
Maybe I should.
So, Stephen, you're stumping us. That's all right. Lori Kilmartin, were there a lot of good BC wineries there, even though the focus was on other countries? Do you just still get other wineries just exhibiting there?
Yeah, so last year, given it was, so not this year, but in 2017, Canada was the host region.
Oh, right.
And so we had a diverse amount of Canadian wine from throughout the country. And it took significant effort to do that because a lot of our wineries are smaller.
That's right. And we have this interprovincial trade barrier thing going on.
Which Europeans don't really understand.
No, I'm sure no one does.
Why do you have horizontal or vertical barriers between your provinces?
Exactly.
It's,
that's coming to an end very, very soon.
Well, let's hope so.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
Some of, just to highlight a few, I definitely did venture to British Columbia section and enjoyed quite a bit of yummy wines there. Some that stand out for us was probably Cassini Cellars. Beautiful Bordeaux style, but I don't want to say Bordeaux because it's BC, so big, beautiful BC style reds. Cedar Creek was another phenomenal producer.
That's a great
Painted
producer.
Rock. Bubbly from Stellar's J was exciting. They actually have a sparkling Shiraz. We won't get it in Ontario, so don't look. But if you're in BC and you're in the Southern Okanagan and you want to try a sparkling Shiraz, it's not from Australia.
Sure. Sounds interesting.
It was beautiful.
And lots of smaller little wineries like Haywire. That was awesome. Tin Horn Creek. Those were some memorable ones.
So it's not just the theme country. There's other countries. Would it be just BC and the other country, or many countries are still there, or other countries?
Many.
Yeah, so you can walk up to, if you check out Bespoke Tastings on Instagram,
there you go.
You can check out some of the wines that we've actually sampled.
Bespoke Tastings.
Bespoke, as in customized.
Right.
Yeah.
Custom.
We'll show you our Instagram and Twitter accounts. We'll show you some of the wines that we've tasted.
Is that a website too? BespokeTastings.com or .ca? Do you have a website?
Working on it.
Coming soon. Go to Instagram first then. But also people can go to, is it vanwinefest.ca, I think is the festival site, right? For the info.
You'll see a full list of, I think, almost 180 wineries featured.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
It's quite big.
That's hefty. Wow.
Yeah.
Hashtag VIWF.
There, you'll find a lot of stuff on that Twitter hashtag as well.
And Instagram.
Instagram.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, we know where to find you and the festival. Is there anything we haven't covered off that you wanted to add at this point?
Well, we know we're going next year.
Oh,
we know it's California.
Awesome.
So
we'll have to follow you on Instagram to see you live. Or hopefully people who are watching this will be convinced to go themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe meet you there.
It would be fantastic for more Canadians to be able to access this festival. It is exceptional.
Yeah, it really does. It separates itself from all of the other shows out there, I think. Not just in Canada, but around the world too. Yeah.
There's a sense of community in Vancouver too. So it's not just like the festival. We go to a restaurant across the street. Maybe that's a little bit too close, but maybe 2 blocks down the street, and they could tell. They're like, "Hey, you guys are at Van Wine Fest, eh?" You know, like we have this like a happy hour going on for Van Wine Fest folks. Do you want to try? Or like, and people were wearing our little name tags or badges, and people notice that, and they're like, "Oh, well, we'll see you there." And meeting a lot of the people in the trade in Vancouver who attend the festival floor. That's really fun too. A lot of they are really supportive of their trade population there. They have an amazing Sommelier of the Year award that is
Sean
highly
Nielsen,
intensive.
I interviewed him and Vidge like about a month ago. Dynamite duo, like
totally,
with the pairings, and just his knowledge.
Absolutely, and then you just see these people walking down the festival floor. You kind of want to see, like, what are they trying? Like, what are they going for? I'm going to shadow them for 2 visits, but then you get distracted by somebody else. So it's really fun. It's exciting you never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
rubbing elbows with masters of wine.
Yes.
Throughout the room.
You're just steeped in it.
The stories and their presence with you.
Yeah.
They're really amazing people.
Fantastic. As are you two. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Sunday Sipper Club this Sunday. I really appreciate it, and it was great. Let's have a cheers before you guys exit stage left. Cheers. Stay with us, folks. Cheers. I've got some announcements coming up, guys, so don't go away. But thank you again, folks. I know you're still tasting downstairs. We're having a team tasting today, so you have some more wines to taste. All
Absolutely.
right.
I'd love to lean into this. This Alvar Pedro Jimenez Vintage 2014.
Sounds good.
Gorgeous.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Natalie.
Okay, thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks to you both. All right, guys. Wasn't that great? Great conversation. Okay. And Matt Steve says, great video, Somm friends. There were lots of great BC wines too. Matt was out there as well. Cedar Creek, Painted Rock, Cassini Cellars. stood out as outstanding. Deborah Podrigal. Osoyos La Rose, Grand Vin, yum. Oculus, says Stephen Andrews. Deb, I think you need to take several days to be able to approach a lot of the wines. Yes. It sure is. It takes a lot of time to do all of that. All right, folks. So as you're as we're wrapping up, I would love for you to post in the comments what was the most interesting thing that you learned tonight. Would love to know whether it was about the Vancouver Wine Fest or about the wines we talked about, anything like that. And again, as always, we really appreciate if you share the video so more people can find us here on the Sunday Sipper Club. Follow, etc., etc., etc. Before I announce the winner of last week's contest, I just wanted to let you know that those of you who are in the Get Wine Smart course, we're going to have a tasting tonight of what I call green wines. We're getting ready for St. Patrick's Day. Green wines meaning fresh, crisp, springy, lime fresh wines like Gruner Veltliner and Sauvignon Blanc and some other treats. So join me in the private Facebook group if you're a member of that course, as I know a number of you are here tonight. All right, so, and Alan Cameron, excellent. You'll be coming over to be the guest next week. Very good, Alan. Nice touch. Okay, so I'm not sure if she's here live tonight, but the winner for a signed copy of Kathy Hayhoe's book, she's the wine columnist for Forbes magazine, is Ashley Tyla. Ashley Tyla. I believe she's Canadian. So even, I think, Toronto. So Ashley, please email me your mailing address so we can send that book to you. All right, guys? Next week's guest, you're going to love him. His name is Pete Hellman. He wrote In Venus Duplicitus. It's about a big, huge wine scandal. The book just came out. It's sold out, and they've just replenished copies. He's based in New York City, and he is also a wine columnist, or at least has been in the past, for the New York Observer and some other publications. Great writer, fascinating stories. You're going to love hearing about the sort of underside of the wine world with, it was about counterfeit wine, fake wines, and how people were able to pass them off so long. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for being here tonight with me on the Sunday Sipper Club. And I look forward to chatting with you next week. And thanks again to my guests, Monique and John. They were fabulous. And enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. Take care, folks.